Here are the top three supplements that actually help me as a skinny guy. Let's move to number one. Okay, so number one is pea protein. I haven't had whey protein in around 8 years. It's just my body doesn't tolerate it as well. And before everyone starts jumping into conclusions saying, oh, the plant based protein doesn't have the same amount of amino acids as whey protein is the best. I'll just show you a quick study. So basically, they took 50 male futsal players who followed 8 weeks of supplementations with um, 40 of them completing the study either with plant-based protein or whey protein. So the following measures were assessed: bone mineral content, lean body mass, fat mass, muscle thickness, rectus femoris, total body water, blood glucose. You can see I'm not going to read all of them. 1 rep max testing of the back squat and the bench press exercise, muscle power, counter movement, jump VO2 max. Okay, so the results were that there was no difference in any variable were observed between groups of baseline or pre to post intervention. So the conclusion: supplementing with either novel plant-based protein matrix or whey protein did not affect any of the variables assessed in a high-level futsal players over 8 weeks. These results suggest that whey protein does not possess any unique anabolic properties over and above those of plant-based protein when equated to an essential amino acid profile in the population studied. Furthermore, when consuming a daily protein intake above 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight a day, additional protein supplementation does not affect body composition or performance in trained futsal players, regardless of protein type source. So, I prefer pea protein because for me it's easier to digest. I would say it's relatively cheap, and also it has all the essential amino acids that you need. So don't overcomplicate these things. When it comes to protein intake, aim for around 1.6 grams to around 1.8 to 2 grams of kilo per body weight. So let's say if I'm 80 kg, on the higher side, that'll be around 160 grams of protein. That's plenty. Also, keep in mind the plant based protein is not as hard on the kidneys as animal based protein, and they're easier to digest, which is very important. Moving on to the second one, which is actually one of my favorites. I bet you didn't expect this, is digestive enzymes. So, a lot of the times, what happens with skinny people is they would eat a lot. A lot of them, they would even be in somewhat of a calorie surplus. So they'll actually be consuming more calories that they're burning. But what happens is they're not putting on any weight because a lot of the times their digestive system is not used to consuming that much food. And now, once they start consuming it, the body is under stress and can't digest all of the food properly. So, what happens is a lot of the nutrients they don't get digested and absorbed the way that they should. So that's why using an enzyme supplement helps a lot. It helps your body also preserve some energy from using it for digestion, if that makes sense. So basically, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but you have three types of enzymes. You have protease, whatever. I can't even. Probably fucking it up, probably not pronouncing it properly. Anyway, by the name, you can tell that this enzyme helps with protein digestion. Okay, it's found in pineapple. You got bromelain in there, in kiwis and papaya. In papaya, it's called papain, which helps with protein digestion. Um, Amylase, that's the one that helps digest carbs. Carbs start digesting from the mouth. So the moment you put carbs in your mouth, that's when the digestion starts. Whereas, like with the other ones, they need to go down to the pancreas and the stomach. So amylase, yeah, that's for the carbs. To be fair, carbs are quite easy to digest anyway. The main thing is when I'm looking at enzyme products, I'm aiming to get one where it has more protease. So the main thing is obviously you want to digest the protein as much as possible, especially if you're having a lot of like meat and animal based protein because they're harder to digest. It's good to implement some of those supplements. And the last one is lipase, which is helps break down the fat. As like I said, if you're having a lot of meat, animal based proteins, which a lot of the times are higher in fat, it's good to have a combination of both. And if you're more of a plant based diet, you want enzymes which are gonna help break down the fiber, especially if you're having a lot of like beans and lentils, because they can be harder to digest as well, especially in larger amounts. So these are my two favorite supplements. I'm not sponsored by any of them. You can obviously go and do your own research. That's something that I've personally tried and I've had great benefits. So I would suggest, like I said, go and do your own research. This is not medical advice. Go check out. You can experiment and see how it feels. But that's one of my favorites, and actually, it made a difference in how I felt, and obviously with me putting on muscle. Number three, gonna move on to creatine. We've all heard about creatine, but not in the way that you think. It's really interesting because a lot of people when they hear creatine, it pulls water into the muscle. It helps with ATP production, adenosine triphosphate, which helps, which the fast twitch muscle fibers use as fuel. So it helps you get few extra reps, let's say one or two, especially on the exercises that are lower reps. For example, 3 to 5 to 6 reps. And obviously that helps with muscle building. But I'm not gonna talk about this about creatine today because everyone knows that. What I'm gonna talk about is how creatine impacts myostatin in the body, which is very interesting. Very few people have spoken about this. What myostatin is, imagine that's like a hormone that prevents your muscle from growing too much. That's like, imagine you're driving a car. Myostatin is the brake. Okay. I'm gonna go to a study in a sec to show you the effects of creatine on myostatin. I'll show you here. We can see these two animals, this bull and this dog. So these pictures are quite old. That's way before AI. What happens here? These two animals in particular have this mutation which they're deficient in myostatin. So what happens is their muscles develop rapidly. That's why they look so freakish. We all have myostatin in our bodies. Some people have it higher, some people have it lower. Basically, put it this way: the higher your myostatin is, the less muscle you're gonna build, if that makes sense. So let's look at the study. It's very interesting because effects of oral creatine and resistance training on serum myostatin and GASP1. So serum myostatin, that's basically the myostatin found in your blood, and GASP1 is, imagine that's like if myostatin is the brake, GASP1 is taking your foot off the brake, just putting it this way. So as you can see, myostatin is a catabolic regulator of skeletal muscle mass. The purpose of the study was to determine the effect of resistance training for 8 weeks in conjunction with creatine supplementation on muscle strength, lean body mass, and serum levels of myostatin and growth, and different factors associated with serum protein 1, GSP1, in double-blinded design. 27 healthy male subjects, 23.2. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Were assigned to control. So one group was only doing resistance training with placebo, and the other one was doing resistance training with creatine supplementation. They did that for 8 weeks. They trained 3 days a week for 8 weeks, each session including 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions at 60 to 70% of the 1 rep max for whole body exercise. blood sampling, muscular strength testing, and body composition analysis. So basically, full DEXA scans were performed at 0, 4th, and the 8th weeks. Myostatin and GASP1 was measured. Resistance training caused significant decrease in serum levels of myostatin and increase in that of GASP1. So GASP1 helps with the lowering of myostatin. What's interesting in here is the creatine supplementation in conjunction with resistance training. So the group that not only did resistance training but did the training and also took creatine led to greater decreases in serum myostatin. So this is very interesting, but had no additional effect on GASP1. So taking the creatine didn't really affect the GASP1, but it did lower myostatin more. So what does that tell you? If myostatin is the thing that stops muscle growth, taking creatine and resistance training managed to lower it compared to just resistance training. The effects of resistance training on serum levels of myostatin and GSP1 may explain the increase in muscle mass that is amplified by creatine supplementation. This is what I'm talking about, guys. It's very interesting. It's not just the ATP effect of creatine. It's not just increasing the strength level, is impacting myostatin. It's very interesting how it works. And obviously, these animals here, they didn't take myostatin. And obviously, these two animals in here, they didn't take creatine or whatever. They just have a mutation. But any advantage that we can use to lower myostatin to help us build muscle and get to our desired goals, we need to be able to use it. Obviously, in the spectrum of not going overboard, like taking steroids and stuff. If you want to take steroids, be my guest. There's nothing. That's your choice. But we need to be using every single unfair advantage that we have. Subscribe to the channel. A lot more videos are coming, and click the link in the description to book a one-to-one free consultation with me, where I'm gonna help you achieve your goals. Talk to you next time. Peace.